Where one exquisite chapter ends, another begins concerning Visions of Atlantis. I know many of you are probably not shocked concerning the number of you that made them a frequent recommendation in my comments. And as I always say in terms of coverage today, thank you for providing me their name. They've been a wonderful experience to humor. And I thought we were heading off to the races with the first album. We consulted 4 tracks together in terms of first entrance, but you want to start things on a high note. Especially for somebody like myself who's a symphonic metal fan at heart. I mean, I generally admire the metal scene broadly, but symphonic, my heart generally rests there. Because again, I'm a big orchestral fan. Start with a track called Release My Symphony. I am engaged already, and it's a long piece at just a little over 7 minutes. So we have plenty to enjoy, I am sure, and I think we'll have a fun ride with this one. I mean, this is the evolution point, right? We started at least in a budding entrance with Visions of Atlantis, perhaps together, right? I know many of you, of course, advanced me in terms of your familiarity, those of you who made them a frequent recommendation, but maybe a number of you who have not yet entertained this group. I mean, I know they've got plenty of circulations, maybe you come across their name, but you haven't dug deeper. Let's do it together, right? I love that about music, that we're enjoying good art simultaneously, right? In a mutual experience of sorts. Granted, maybe in a bit of an unorthodox appearance, for sure. But I love showcasing good art on here, and certainly with music, it's a universal qualifier that I would attribute. Music, for me, first love in my life, and the many artists I've had the honor of recognizing here and being introduced to, perhaps, especially in the European regard. It's been a fun ride, and one that I have loved every step of the way. These are very much passion project videos for me. They're my favorites to make. Just highlighting good artists and experiencing them together, right, on a first introduction. Long-time favorites, I'm sure, with Visions of Atlantis. Certainly, again, you bring me into favor automatically with the metal backing, specifically on, as I understand, melodic, symphonic, and power influences, which I've witnessed, of course, in the first album, the 4 tracks we humored together. But of an Austrian basis, that's a first for me in terms of a group. Maybe I've humored a couple of our Austrian artists in isolation, right, on their own performances. But maybe with some of our groups as well, but primarily an Austrian group, at least, of origin. That's a first for this channel. And for my life, I believe, Visions of Atlantis has that achievement that I'll throw their way. And it's quite a deserving one. And what I've humored in terms of scope and narrative, mixed with brilliant musical scores, that early album was just great. To see the mixture of variety as well in approach, in manifesting this mythological vision and sort of a seafaring voyage towards Atlantis, or maybe in other destinations, right? I can't get over how good Return to Lemuria is, for example. That piece is so good. I'm really excited to hear where Wanderers goes, right? We're wandering out in terms of our journey, but it's a fun one for sure. I mean, I just love this about music that, again, it's just so strong in terms of its potency and reach. And for a group like Visions of Atlantis, it's so much fun. And I hope for those of you that have not yet entertained this name, and maybe you haven't yet ventured as deeply as I have into the European metal regard, you're going to be in for a fun ride. Let this be your first entrance, and I think it'll be a fun one for you, as there are many examples that I could qualify, and many which we've happened upon the channel, and many more to come based on your recommendations. I got a growing catalog. Visions of Atlantis was one such name for a while. Many of you have been pining away, and here I am. I deliver when possible. Granted, it takes me a while, but better late than never. And to approach another group just as exquisitely talented as many in the European foray, like Visions of Atlantis, it's an honor. Let's enjoy them together for a first entrance to this new album, Wanderers, through Release My Symphony. Again, you got a lot of promise on that name. Okay, a slow down opener. Subtle plucking. I love that kind of whisper effect just drifting in. Foreboding edge. Darker field. With that vocal drift in the background. Siren-like. It's wonderful. I love that addition. That's smooth. The progression on that, absolutely wonderful. That was a nice drift. And again, intermixing the power and the symphonic. This is more, it's more symphonic at basis, but so good. Strong. We're off to the races on our second chapter for sure. Clementine's voice here is gorgeous. And there's our orchestral intrusion. And Michelle's supporting vocals, great to hear. And when the two overlap, again, that hybrid association. It's been golden so far. Quite natural. Beautifully complimentary. This score is wonderful. The key changes too, the driftings on this piece, the navigation, sufficient, beautiful. And that drive on that, very Zandria-like. I love that appearance here. Though this would have been the first, at least on album release, but it reminds me a lot of like Reborn, some of the newer pieces from them. German symphonic metal, if you're not familiar. I love when that kicks in. It adds such a nice mythological flair, even if the piece feels particularly modern and faithful to the symphonic vision. And there's our scale. I love that. Nice place for a break. We are about halfway through the song, so it makes sense. We got a lot of room to cover still. Man. And I love long numbers like this in the symphonic mode. Again, I can bring up Zandria as an example. This is also how their album opened. Like, I think a nearly 7-minute song, or maybe 8. But it was a long procession. It was a great one to have. There's that operatic twinge. I love it. Even though with Clementine it's used sparingly. But I just love when it invades. I like the disruptions in mood. That adds on a bit of a unique personality compared to other pieces that are maybe more streamlined and consistent. Or refer back. I sent this one departing. We'll see where it goes in navigation. I get the sense this is going to be a bit stretched and take us into the end. Okay, where are we going from here? No, original reference. Okay, I like it. Good closure. Beautiful choices here. I was hoping we get a higher inflection on Clementine's part and have the two blend. That score is amazing, especially as an outro effect. That is so smooth. Which is interesting considering how diverse the piece is. It's extremely varied. Oh man, I love this mood. You know, normally, as many of you I'm sure are aware at this point, my traditional mechanisms for determining selections of works reside in going by the visualizer model. So when you have an album and an artist debuts a new project, I'll look through, especially in terms of going back and, maybe a number of years like I did with this piece, considering which what songs debuts got visualizers or music videos, whatever, right? To sort of even out the field so that I can accommodate other bands as well and be generous, right? To give a good scope to the artist and get a good vision for their work and to see them, in performance, right? That's always fun. It adds an interesting layer. But sometimes I'll depart from that, right? It's on a case-by-case basis, but if certain pieces, maybe guest artists, I can think of a couple occasions, again, where case-by-case basis is warranted. Something will usually provoke me. Maybe it'll be just a lesson count of visualizers. I'm like, I want to increase. And so I look at maybe what tracks garnered an audience more so, maybe based on purchase rates or something else, or maybe just attention online. This piece was clearly just on Temptation. Like, again, you throw a symphonic label in anything, and I'm like, okay, let's humor you. And I'm not disappointed. I mean, I've looked at a lot of symphonic metal hits on this channel for sure, from a number of different artists, many in the European vein. And it's so cool to see how varied each one is and departs from the other. Specific signatures, right, that we attribute to certain artists maybe don't overlap, or maybe there is a bit of a cohesion. This is, I think, a great mix of different elements I've seen played around to different groups for specs, but blended tightly. Because it does hit so many types of, not just like literal notes, but it hits different notes under the symphonic umbrella. The startup, our origin, so smooth and dainty but forceful, had a bit of like a darker, foreboding, ominous reach. And then you hear the force kick in again from what is more so attributed to metal, right? That's where that kicks in, but you still have that symphonic orchestral presence in the backing, notably between the breaks in the vocals on behalf of the verse constructions. And I love, were those trumpets or something? I love that flair. I mean, again, I've said many times, non-musician by trade, musical connoisseur, I just appreciate good art. I love highlighting it here. That piece, again, it's incredibly varied on scope. But its destination, again, feels complete, cohesive. It feels like we take a natural path, right, through just an exquisite number, with beautiful vocals to complement. I love the higher range in terms of Clementine's vocals, and then Michelle providing the subordinate role, but a faithful complement. It's a great balance. I loved hearing those operatic hints. I'm waiting to see maybe a mainstay presence where that's more stressed. We'll see if we hit on any of those pieces where that manifests. So maybe it's just a creative choice to use it in a more subtle manner, but I love those inflections. I can't get enough of them. And there's many, European artists I can think of in terms, especially the symphonic regard, that tap into that orchestral theming, right? Amber Verhees of Zondria, again, the connection point in terms of attribution. She's one. Diane von Gisbergen. Uli Perhonen, a German vocalist. Emmanuel Zoldan from Sirenia. There's Simone Simons. There's so many examples that I could name at this point that I've just grown madly in love with. And, I didn't used to be a big opera fan. It took metal to bring that in. And, well, symphonic metal more specifically, that is a common element I've seen in play in a number of different venues. And it's a point of interest to me that I've greatly appreciated since I've been introduced. Clementine is just the newest addition. And it's wonderful to hear. I'd love to see maybe a stressing of it in greater dominance. We'll see. But even if it's maybe just used as a subtle hint, I'm okay with that. Because it taps into the piece and how it acts as just a complementary element to a work with such sufficient navigation. And again, one that hits on so many different types of traits within the symphonic root. The aggressive edge, a more ballad structure. But it has that general atmosphere to it that creates this wider feeling work, right? I just love that that delivery, that execution, the precision. It's a wonderful piece of humor. It's even better to humor it with you, especially on a first introduction note. I'd love to hear if you're sharing any experience on that front, right? Or if this is a familiar track to you. Feel free to disclose that down below and your overall thoughts on the song. Of course, that's our first entrance, right, to the new album. Certainly not our last type of Visions of Atlantis. And again, as I always say, thank you to every one of you that recommended their name to me. I'm happy to cover them. I've loved the journey thus far. Looking forward to more. Our next piece being Heroes of the Dawn. I like that. Kind of maintains, again, that storytelling vibe. I'm sure it'll be just as fun as this piece was. We had a fun first chapter with The Deep and the Dark, the album, at least from what we heard of it. But I'll be listening to the entirety of the album probably for myself on my own at some point. But our first introduction to Wanderers. What a fabulous chapter. And you kick it off on a symphonic note, like, we're off to the races already. I'm sure from here it's going to be just as fun and perfect as ever with them. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.